A sensational pole position, a furious four-time world champion, and the threat of disqualification hanging over an entire team. Qualifying for the Singapore Grand Prix delivered absolutely everything and set the stage for one of the most tense races of the season. George Russell, in a simply flawless lap, put Mercedes on top, but the story of the day doesn't end there. Max Verstappen, who seemed to have the pace to fight for pole, aborted his final lap and aimed all his frustration at Lando Norris with a clear threat. That will be remembered. Let's dive into all the details of this chaotic qualifying session, because what happened at Marina Bay goes far beyond the front row. We saw Mercedes resurface, McLaren stumble where they were favorites, and the stewards put in extra work with multiple investigations. The climax of the session, Q3, was where George Russell shone spectacularly. On his first run, he clocked a time of 1 minute 29.165 seconds, even after lightly brushing the wall at turn 16. That shows the British driver's level of commitment. He was on the absolute limit. That time was already almost 0.2 faster than Max Verstappen's. On the final run with fresh tires, the expectation was a fierce battle. But Russell went out and improved even more, clinching the definitive pole with a 129.158, a dominant performance. Meanwhile, Red Bull watched the pole slip away. Verstappen was on a flying lap, and it looked like he could challenge Russell, but in the final sector, he simply backed off. Over the radio, his engineer, Gianpiero Lambiase, was direct. "You can thank your mate for that," a clear shot at Lando Norris, who was ahead on the track. Verstappen, visibly annoyed, didn't mention Norris by name in the interview, but the message was captured by the cameras in his tone. Second place on the grid is a great attacking position, but for Max, it left a bitter taste. And what about McLaren? Where was the team that many predicted would lock out the front row? Oscar Piastri salvaged a good third place, putting himself in an excellent strategic position for the race, right behind Verstappen. But his teammate and title rival, Lando Norris, had a disappointing session, finishing only 5th, almost half a second behind Russell. For someone fighting for the championship, starting behind so many direct competitors on a track like Singapore is a huge problem. In between them, we also had an impressive performance from Kimi Antonelli, putting the other Mercedes in 4th. Completing the top 10, we saw the 2 Ferraris, with Lewis Hamilton in 6th and Charles Leclerc in 7th, a quiet performance for the Scuderia. Isaac Hadjar once again put the Racing Bulls in an excellent 8th position, ahead of Oliver Behrman's Haas and Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin. But to understand how this grid was formed, we need to go back a bit. Q2 already hinted at surprises. Several drivers, including Russell, Hamilton, and Antonelli, had their first laps deleted for exceeding track limits, which put extra pressure on everyone. In the end, Russell showed Mercedes' strength by setting the fastest time, with Verstappen splitting the 2 silver arrows. The big disappointment here was Yuki Tsunoda, who couldn't get past 15th. Eliminated along with him were Nico Hülkenberg and the Williams duo of Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz. With such an explosive starting grid, brimming with heated rivalries, tomorrow's race promises to be a powder keg. And to ensure you don't miss a single detailed analysis, behind-the-scenes story, and the fallout from everything happening in the paddock, the best decision you can make is to join our community right here. If you're new here or you've been watching for a while, hitting that subscribe button and turning on notifications is the single best way to stay ahead of the curve. It guarantees you'll get our content first, and it's the #1 way to support what we do. And leave a like on this video. We also want to know, what city are you watching from? Comment below. It helps us understand how far our content is reaching and signals to YouTube that we're a community that F1 fans value. Now that we've gone over the starting order, let's dive into the main controversy of the day, the incident that set fire to the relationship between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. Because in Formula 1, what happens on the track rarely stays on the track, and the words exchanged after the session can carry enormous weight for the rest of the championship. Verstappen's frustration wasn't just about losing pole, it was about the way he felt he lost it. Let's analyze the 4-time champion side first. After abandoning his lap, Verstappen was clear and direct in Parc Fermé. He said, "That's what happens when there's a car in front of you just cruising 2 seconds ahead." He didn't stop there. The line that echoed through the paddock was, "So, that's noted. It will be remembered as well." For anyone who follows the sport, that's not just a complaint, it's a warning. It's Verstappen saying that in a future battle for position, maybe a wheel-to-wheel fight, he won't make things easy for Norris. Memories in Formula One are long, and those debts are usually paid back on the track at the most inconvenient moment for an opponent. Replays show Verstappen giving a sarcastic thumbs-up gesture toward Norris, making his irritation clear to the world. On the other side of the conflict, we have Lando Norris's response, who, true to his style, didn't back down. When informed of Verstappen's anger, Norris was quick and sharp. They always complain. They complain about everything. That's Red Bull." This statement adds more fuel to the fire of the rivalry between the two teams. Norris completely downplayed the incident, claiming he wasn't even aware of Verstappen approaching. "I didn't even know. I was like 3 seconds ahead," he said. The question that remains is, did Norris really not see Verstappen closing in, or was he managing his in-lap in a way that, intentionally or not, compromised his rival's lap? To add another layer to this dispute, Red Bull advisor Helmut Marko enters the scene. Marko, known for being blunt, called Norris's move incomprehensible. He went further, stating that Norris completely blocked Max in the final 2 corners, and that for the McLaren driver, there was nothing to gain. Marko even raised doubts about intent, saying, "I can't imagine it was intentional, but the mere mention fuels the controversy." Red Bull's view is clear. They were 1/10.5 up on Verstappen's previous time, and pole was a real possibility before the block. What does this mean in practice? This war of words heats up the championship fight. Verstappen is in attack mode, hunting down the 2 McLaren drivers. Creating psychological friction, letting a rival know there's a score to settle, can be a powerful weapon in the races to come. Meanwhile, as Red Bull and McLaren traded barbs over a few tenths of a second, another team, Williams, received news from the stewards that could throw their entire weekend in the trash. A technical irregularity that could drastically change the back of the grid. And as if the clash between Verstappen and Norris wasn't enough spice, the Singapore paddock was shaken by news coming directly from the FIA stewards room. Let's step away from the battle at the front of the grid for a moment and look at a drama that could have drastic consequences for the midfield. The Williams team is under investigation for a possible technical irregularity on both of its cars. After qualifying, all cars undergo a rigorous inspection, and that's where the FIA's technical delegate Joe Bauer found a problem. The report he issued was clear and concerning for the Grove-based team. On the cars of Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz, the uppermost rear wing element, the famous DRS flap, exceeded the maximum allowed opening of 85 millimeters on both sides when deployed. It might seem like a small detail, a matter of millimeters, but in Formula One, the technical regulations are absolute. The rule, specifically Article 3.1010G, is very clear about this measurement. Any violation, no matter how small, typically results in a single penalty, disqualification from the qualifying session. This means that if the stewards confirm the infringement, both Sainz and Albon, who qualified 13th and 12th respectively, would be forced to start from the back of the grid on Sunday. For a team like Williams, fighting for every precious point, this would be a devastating blow. To make matters worse, this isn't the first time the team has found itself in this situation. We remember that last year, Alex Albon was disqualified from qualifying at the Dutch Grand Prix for an issue with his car's floor. The recurrence of technical problems that violate the regulations is certainly a concern for the team. But the stewards room in Singapore was busy. The Williams case was the most serious, but not the only one. Remember the yellow flag caused by the hydraulic failure on Pierre Gasly's Alpine at the end of Q1? It triggered a separate investigation. Yuki Tsunoda, Gabriel Bortoleto, and Nico Hülkenberg were all summoned for questioning. The reason? They improved their lap times while yellow flags were being waved. While drivers are allowed to finish their laps, they must prove they slowed down in the danger zone. This series of investigations just shows how chaotic and on the edge this session was. For some drivers, the frustration was purely about performance. That's the case for Yuki Tsunoda. After two great qualifying sessions making it into Q3, the Japanese driver had a horror Saturday in Singapore, ending up slowest in Q2 and securing only 15th on the grid. On a track where overtaking is nearly impossible, this performance is a massive setback. So, with a grid potentially shuffled by a disqualification, drivers under investigation, and rivalries exploding, the question is, what can we expect from Sunday's race? Is Russell's pole a guarantee of victory for Mercedes? And how will the title fight between Piastri, Norris, and a furious Verstappen on these tight, treacherous streets? We've reached the crucial point. With all these pieces on the board, what can we expect from the race in Singapore? George Russell's pole puts Mercedes in a position they haven't often been in this season, the favorite to win. But at Marina Bay, pole is just the first step in a brutal marathon. The humidity, the heat, the proximity of the walls, and the extremely high probability of a safety car make this the most unpredictable race of the year. Right beside him, Max Verstappen is in a prime position. Starting second might even be an advantage, allowing him to react to Russell's move into the first corner. And knowing Verstappen, the anger from qualifying will be converted into fuel for the race. His main focus will be finishing ahead of Oscar Piastri and especially Lando Norris. Every point in the title fight is vital, and Verstappen knows that a victory here, in territory where McLaren was considered the favorite, would have a massive psychological impact. This brings us directly to McLaren's internal and external battle. Oscar Piastri in third is in the ideal spot. He can watch the fight between Russell and Verstappen ahead and choose the right moment to attack. For him, a podium, finishing ahead of Norris and maybe Verstappen, would be a fantastic result. Lando Norris, however, in fifth, has the toughest job. He's stuck behind key rivals and will need a bold strategy or an exceptional start to gain positions. We can't forget the second Mercedes, with Kimi Antonelli in fourth. The German team has a golden opportunity to use both cars to control the strategy. And a bit further back, Ferrari, with Hamilton and Leclerc, will be looking for any mistake from the leaders or a timely safety car to shuffle the deck and perhaps snatch an unexpected podium. It's going to be a race of strategy, endurance, and nerves of steel. A 62-lap battle that promises to be long, grueling, and most likely chaotic. Now, we want to hear from you. Who do you think comes out on top in this scenario? Drop your predictions in the comments. Who wins the Singapore GP? And if you're as hyped for this race as we are and enjoyed this complete breakdown, there's a way to show that support. Use the hype button down below. It's an incredible tool that boosts the video and tells the YouTube algorithm that this is content F1 fans need to see. But most importantly, if you've enjoyed this analysis and want to stay right on the pulse of everything happening in Formula One, please consider subscribing to the channel. It is, without a doubt, the single most important way to support what we do. It costs you nothing, but for us, it means everything. Every single subscription helps our community grow and signals to YouTube that this is a home for passionate F1 fans. So, if you want to ensure you never miss an analysis and want to help us continue creating content just like this, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We'd be honored to have you with us for the next race.